So we're here at the NASDAQ, and in general, as a publicly traded company, you've experienced a few challenges, which has really drove you as an expert in market structure, particularly in short selling. Could you just give some lessons learned to newly public companies on that transition and some of the hurdles that you've had to overcome that have even in many cases driven you to the blockchain?
Sure. Well, I got very interested in the microstructure of the market about 12 years ago. We went public in '02 and '04. I pretty much knew how, by the way, I love NASDAQ, and the man who built NASDAQ, the first CEO was a guy named Gordon Macklin. Gordon was kind of a Dutch uncle to me in life. He died. He was on our board. He passed away about 10 years ago. But we had enormous failures to deliver in our stock, 3.8 million lasting for years. And that's a very clear sign of not just manipulation, but in this case, the SEC of 10 years ago, let's say, wasn't the SEC of today. And they seemed to be, 10 years ago, I started wondering if they remembered who they worked for. You know, there's a concept in economics, Stigler, called regulatory capture, that you set up, each society sets up these institutions to protect us from industries, and those industries end up hijacking them. I think 10 or 12 years ago, the SEC was more or less hijacked. There's a lot of good signs, in my view, that it's come out from under the thumb. But it was in the course of learning all about that and the settlement system and things called naked short selling and abuse of the option market maker exemption and all kinds of weird, too technical stuff to talk about on TV, that there were ways to game the system. And that's what we became aware of 10 years ago and spent a lot of time trying to get the regulators to understand it. They pretty much pushed back until 2008, at which point they then did all the things we've been telling them we thought they needed to do. But what's so cool about the blockchain is it actually, I never thought I'd say this, I've come to like the regulators. The blockchain does their job for them. If you build a blockchain-based Wall Street, there's all kinds of things. First of all, you can take about 80 or 90% out of the costs of a transaction. And secondly, you can make it mischief-proof. All kinds of games and illegal things that get done that the regulators are supposed to stamp out actually become impossible in a correctly designed blockchain capital market.
And you spoke a little bit about that earlier this month at the Futures Industry Conference, where I heard you speak a lot about the inefficiencies in clearing and settlement and how there's essentially three market players, whether you're a broker, an exchange like NASDAQ, or a clearing house, and the ability that those three have to really disrupt or to really create efficiencies through a new clearing and settlement platform. Could you just explain a little bit about what that meant when
Sure.
you talked through it?
Well, currently when you go on your E-Trade account and you sell some shares to me in my Merrill Lynch account, we're paying, there's actually a great deal of friction costs absorbed in the system. And typically for a 1,000 share trade, there's probably, for retail customers, there's probably about actually $40 of cost per 1,000 shares, boat round trip. If you're talking about a good institutional player with good technology, they may have it down to $4 each way, so $8 round trip. But that's like really good. Under the system that we've designed, I think is going to be able to shrink those costs under $1. Now, so that's an enormously disruptive event. You're shrinking 90-ish% of the costs out of the system. Who's going to use that? And that's to this point, it's like a big Game of Thrones. I'm all over the world these days talking to exchanges and central security depositories and big banks and custodians in different parts of the world. And what's happening is everybody's realizing if those are the three groups, they all act like they're friends, but it's what economists call a big prisoner's dilemma. Each of them has realized, I'd say in the last 3 months, that any one of them can get this technology and disrupt the other two. And that's what's really going on. It's happening in every country. I just came back from Europe. I just had somebody in Asia. Everybody is realizing that these three groups, the custodian banks, the exchanges, and the central security depositories, one of the three is going to get a blockchain-based system and then you can disrupt the other two.
That's exciting times. Are
Yeah.
you finding that there's one part of the world that is gravitating more towards this? Asia would be a natural one, I'm sure, that has embraced things like Bitcoin in the past. Are they gravitating towards this?
Asia, East Asia, very far-sighted. South Asia, I've been over in the Middle East talking about this, South Asia as well. But I'd say Europe. UK is being wonderful. They've offered us free office space over there. We'll come over and set up there. Germany, France, Belgium. There's places. Europe is going nuts about this. We could go. I'm so dying to make this an American thing, but we can turn around tomorrow and be doing very big business in Europe. And we have offers from Asia to bring this to Asia. So we're at this point is kind of funny. We're just sort of sorting through the offers and trying to figure out who our real allies are going to be.